Hey guys, Peter here to do an album review. Today I'm here to tell you about the latest from Feuerschwanz, Memento Mori, out December 31st on Napalm Records. This album has 11 tracks, 39 minutes in length, and this is the band's 10th full-length studio album. They are a German medieval folk metal band. Now there's going to be a deluxe edition that's going to include 2 bonus CDs. One is an all covers and the other one is all 11 tracks in instrumental format. As far as this album goes, I love how they put together 2 worlds that make this record impactful, and that is the structure that it has and the duration that it holds. Now, as far as the duration goes, 39 minutes is absolutely perfect. You want an album to feel fresh. You want the listener at the end of the experience to want to go back again to it and not feel overburdened by what you just went through. That's exactly how this album works. I listened to it on loop. Every time Memento Mori would come back up meant that I was back again at the beginning, and it always surprised me because it didn't feel like I was listening to this record for 39 minutes. On the other side, the album has a very interesting structure, super dynamic, constantly changing from song to song, and then including a ballad near the middle of the album really breaks all the fun and all the drive that the album has up until that point, allowing you to kind of take a step back, prepare yourself for what's going to come after so you can finish the album on a strong note. And once again, you don't feel overburdened by the experience because of that pause really helps set up the final chapter of this record. So I love how this album is constructed. I love the fact that it has 39 minutes. You put these 2 things together and the album has a flawless way of coming across. Now, as far as the sound is concerned, this album is definitely diverse. There's a lot of different layers on the record. They're not muddied. They're really easy to understand. So even though this is a very robust sounding album with a lot of depth, it's not an album that takes a lot for you to get into it. It's easy to process, it's easy to digest, it's easy to understand, and this allows the whole record to sound a lot better and to come across a lot stronger. I also felt that sound-wise, this album had a lot of power across all the different elements. The drums sound perhaps a little heavier than normal, the guitars definitely sound heavier than normal, and everything else has this sense of wideness to it. Every instrument, every approach, every way they designed this record, it's allowing the album to feel big, to feel robust, not cinematic, but to feel big and robust, and allowing itself to have a nice sound that really carries itself forward from song to song, never really losing a lot of its momentum, a lot of its luster. Now, as far as what drives the experience, I was expecting perhaps the folk elements to have a very predominant role in really pushing this album, being the motor of the record. Now, they have an important role, but I didn't feel like I was being driven from song to song by what the folkiness of the album had to offer. It's a very important element, but it's not a defining element, at least not in my opinion. The defining element of this record is the guitar sound. The bite that the guitars have, the heaviness that the guitars have, how they push the individual songs, and then obviously how they catapult those songs from one to the other, and the overall experience of the album being so dynamic. I feel like all of it really comes down to how the guitars sound, how they were executed, and how they were mixed with everything else. The mixture of the melody that comes out of the folk elements with the bite and heaviness of the guitars, it becomes the calling card of this album, song in and song out. And that's not to say that the drums, for example, don't play an important role or that the bass doesn't play an important role. They do. They kind of ground this record, creating a foundation that's very important. I don't think you can have that force with the guitars and that melody of the folkiness coming together perfectly unless there's a glue that binds them together. And bass and drums are definitely that glue that holds the whole sound very uniform, very together, like I said, very robust throughout the entire record. Vocally, this album is phenomenal. Perhaps one of their best albums vocally, super strong, track after track after track. The combination of vocals, the combination of styles, the interaction between one and the other, allowing this album to have a lot of life, to have a little bit of soul, and to feel a little bit more impactful from that perspective. It didn't feel like it was just going through the motions. It was catchy, it was hooky, something that we've always seen from this band, so that is not changing. But some of the melodies and some of the tones felt perhaps a little bit more organic, a little bit more natural, and that obviously had a positive impact on how this album comes across. Overall, I'm not going to sit here and say that this is their best record to date. Everybody says that their latest album is their best record to date. But I'm going to say something. This album is definitely one of their best, if not their best, in the last 6 to 7 years. It's a very strong record. I was blown away by how heavy of a drive this album has, and at the same time, how folky it is. They didn't take away from one in order to add to the other. They were able to make both coexist perfectly throughout the entire album, and like I said, vocally, one of their strongest albums. Now, as far as favorite songs are concerned, I want to start off with Ultima Nocte. The folk melody of this song and the way it mixes in with the guitars is absolutely phenomenal. It becomes this wall of sound that just always coming at you, but it's coming at you, pounding you, but at the same time very easy for you to process and become part of the enjoyment that it brings. The verses are a little bit more contained on this track, but there's a sense of growth as you progress through them, all the way leading you into the chorus. The chorus is more bombastic, has a bigger sound, and it also vocally feels a lot bigger with more layers, more things happening, allowing the song to just really come to life at that specific point. It has a little bit of an anthem vibe to it. It really feels like a folk metal anthem because the way it sounds, the way vocally comes across, all of those elements are there, allowing to almost sing along in certain portions of the song, and that allows the track to feel very hooky as well. The guitar solo is outstanding. It has an old school, almost like very Judas Priest-like style to it that matches the song well because of the drive that the song has. This almost feels a little bit like a power metal song at times, so having that guitar solo fits perfectly into the soundscape, into the design of the song. Next we have Galgen. The guitars push the heaviness once again. They really become the motor of this track, with the folk elements allowing the song to feel a little bit more complete. Now vocally you have a little bit more of a direct approach in the verses, and then a lot more layers coming at you in the chorus. This creates the ebbs and flows that the song needs in order for the track to feel dynamic, in order for the song to feel engaging, in order to have a little bit more of a drive. Overall, it feels very straightforward. It's not an overly complicated song when you look at it. It doesn't feel like there's a lot of things coming at you, but the simplicity that it has hides a little bit of the layers that it holds, and that is what makes this song super interesting. Last but not least, you have Hannibal, a very melodic, perhaps one of the more folkier songs on the album. And on this song, the guitars, while driving the experience, they take perhaps a little bit of a backseat to how the folk sounds, all the folk elements come into the forefront and become a little bit more of the predominant element throughout this entire song. You still have the heaviness of the guitars, but they're just not as punchy, they're just not as driven, they're a little bit better mixed with everything else that is happening. It's a super memorable track. It has a lot of hookiness to it. The fact that the chorus and the title of the track gets repeated ad nauseum throughout the entire song, even though you never really get tired of it, you just always want to listen to it because it's such a bouncy track all around, really makes this a song that's going to stay with you for a very long time. It's hard to forget when you hear the words Hannibal over and over and over again, but you still love it anyways. Alright guys, this is it. This is Feuerschwanz with Memento Mori, out December 31st on Napalm Records. Let me know your thoughts on the band, on the singles. Use the comment section below. I'll be reading those and getting back to you. Take care guys.